I think the biggest opportunity on tax policy is a repatriation of cash that is trapped overseas. And to be clear, that's not a take-two issue. As it happens, 90% of our cash is actually domestic. But it is an industry issue, and it's a broader issue for our economy.
But historically, when we've had the few tax repatriation holidays, in the past, that money's gone to stock buybacks, and it's gone to special dividends, and it hasn't. One could argue that it trickles down to the economy. One can also argue that it doesn't, but it hasn't gone into hiring, it hasn't gone into R&D, hasn't gone into real spending.
So this administration has talked about job creation, and I think it's a primary goal of the administration. It seems to me you could tie favorable treatment to repatriating trapped cash to whether that is invested in the economy as opposed to invested in buybacks or used to pay dividends. And you could tie the two in the same way that like exchanges in the real estate business have obligations and timing restrictions in order to generate a tax benefit.
There, as it relates to the gaming industry, the border tax rules are really interesting to me, at least, because of the way you guys develop software. You might develop some of the software in Canada, a lot of the software in the U.S., some of the same piece of software in the U.K. or something in a global development system. But then how do you tax what's made in Canada versus what's made in the U.S. if it's all lumped into one game?
Well, I think it's certainly possible to do it. The question is it something that benefits our economy? And generally speaking, erecting trade barriers is not something that generates value in our worldwide, utterly matrix-engaged system, not just for our business, for all businesses. However, our industry is especially interested in low or no barriers to trade because we're an exporter. We're one of America's largest exports, entertainment in general. I think we're the second largest export after aerospace. So speaking from our own industry point of view, having as few barriers to free trade as possible benefits our industry and certainly benefits our country. And I think from our point of view, we want people working at their highest and best opportunities, and that means that America's a knowledge economy, America's a trained economy, and we like the fact that we have worldwide engagement and we can put jobs where they belong. We're a big domestic employer, of course.
And it's interesting too, because as the products are more digital, I mean, in the case of yours, of course, games, but you can play that out to entertainment, you can play that out to movies and so on. As they're increasingly digital, less DVDs, less cartridges, there are no cartridges anymore in the gaming business, what you're selling is bits and bytes and lines of code. So where that code is written may determine if it's made in America or not made in America and how the tax policy works. It's got to be really confusing for Congress and the White House to figure out what that means.
Well, again, it's doable because there are certain rebates, for example, that are triggered in foreign jurisdictions, and there are rules around what constitutes local work. So I have no doubt that one could make rules and make those rules work. The question is, would it enhance or detract from productivity, achievement, and the overall macro economy? And I'm suspicious that we can be so smart in centrally planning trade restrictions that it's a net positive. Generally speaking, free trade is a net positive.
Well, and it also seems that the valuation placed on the IP versus the actual creation of the code is a balancing act. If the IP is owned by a U.S. company, but the code is written in Ireland, where is the work and where is the value, and how should something be taxed when it's exported?
All good questions.
So how do you help Congress figure that out?
I think that we encourage Congress to not to erect trade barriers. And I think that's the focus that we have. And I think at the end of the day, because the sitting legislature is Republican dominated, and typically Republicans are believers in free trade, that ultimately there'll be obviously a negotiation with our president. But I think we'll end up probably in the right place.
Where is most of your development for Take-Two?
Much of it is in the U.S., and then it's all around the rest of the world.
What states and so on?
We have a lot of people in California, we have people in Massachusetts, we have people in Baltimore, we also have people in Canada, and we just acquired a company in Spain. We have a bunch of people in the UK. So some Czech Republic and in China.
So a lot of cross-border development. These are interesting challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
And stuff that's possible now that you couldn't have done before because of the way software is developed in sort of teams working around the clock.
That's right. Working around the clock, cooperating, everything's connected electronically. You don't need to be sitting next to someone to work collaboratively with them.
And I would expect you to think that's going to increase in the future.
Unquestionably, and that's probably the right thing. Again, we should avail ourselves of expertise where we can find it. And if we are smart in America about increasing our engineering talent, which is a big issue here, through improving our educational system and focusing on engineering, then those are very high-paying jobs, and we and all of our competitors are hiring hand over fist. We all have open positions.